Our primary goal here at Talkay Media is to steer important conversations to encourage and empower proactive actions and concrete impacts for positive change. And so this week, we're bringing you a bonus episode of our Adventure Under Budget vodcast series to highlight the educational and developmental benefits of travel with Faith Dziruni from Zimbabwe, who is a passionate traveler with years of experience working with numerous NGOs around Africa and other parts of the world. And through these experiences, she's been able to extend her exposure and perspective toward education and its connection with travel. So this is going to be a very rapid episode because it's a bonus episode, and we just can't wait to have Faith share her introspective standpoints on what traveling should mean for this generation of Africans. If you haven't already seen the previous episodes, head on to our Facebook page, that is Talkay Media, or you can find it on YouTube. Yeah, we're on YouTube now. Anyways, if you follow our Instagram and Twitter pages, you can find a link to the videos. Make sure to share, comment, and send us your feedbacks. We'll be glad to make changes where necessary and improve our brand. So thank you so much so far for your support on this episode, on this series, and also your support in general toward this platform. We're glad that people are interested and people want more of what we can offer, and it's our absolute honor to serve you all and to continue bringing to you important conversations that would impact change. So without further ado, we would like to welcome our dynamic guest to this episode, this bonus episode, Faith Dziruni. Welcome to Talkay Media. We're excited to have you. First of all, we've had numerous conversations over time, and you have such a unique idea and perspective on how we can improve ourselves by seeing other parts of the world. And I can't wait for you to share this with the rest of our audience. Welcome to this episode.
Thank you very much for inviting me to the show. I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to share some of my travel experiences with you. But before I go into that, it would be nice to give you a little bit of background about myself so that you kind of, get to know me a little bit before I talk about my travel experiences. So as I've been introduced, I'm Faith. I am passionate about many things, and I try to put my energy to things that really interest me and things that I'm passionate about. And among many other things, I'm very passionate about travel, about learning about different cultures, about challenging myself and challenging my own perspectives as well. The second thing I'm passionate about is education within African societies, in a sense that developing education systems that develop curious, independent, and inquisitive thinkers. An education that doesn't just teach you that 1 + 1 is equal to 2, or you do things this way, but an education that teaches you to challenge the norm, to challenge the information that is there, to come up with new ideas. Another thing that I'm passionate about is social injustice. So that's like one thing that I really, enjoy, just about, having, more equal societies and, supporting every individual in the society to be able to be a useful citizen. So I've worked for NGOs for the past 8 years, and I really, really enjoy that. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background about myself. I think the biggest misconception people have is that travel is for the rich, travel is for people that have money, and travel is very, very, very expensive. Well, I do disagree with that. And don't get me wrong, I think, for us to travel, we also need money. I'm not disregarding that, but there's different types of travel. We can also travel on very low budgets. We can also travel, without much money, and we can also travel without money. What we think sometimes of travel is we have to get on a plane to travel. We have to go to faraway places to travel. I see travel as the state of the mind. You can travel in your community, where you are. It's about being curious about the world around you, exploring the world around you, and you've got to start with what you have, and not waiting for the big holiday. So for me, travel is not just, okay, get on here, do this. It's about, being curious, being open to exploring, the world around us. What I really would like to inspire people is to think beyond money, not to let it be an obstacle, just to think about how creative you can be with the resources that you have in order to enable you to travel. Think about the relatives you have, that you can go from one place and visit another place. But when you visit there, don't stay in the house. Go and learn about the town. Go and learn about the history. To begin with, you can get so much from travel. It depends on what you want to get from it. For me, like, one of the things that I really like to do is to challenge myself mentally, physically, emotionally, to be able to push what I even think I'm capable of. It opens your mind. I have this saying that, what you know is not necessarily all there is to know. We don't know everything. That's just the truth. And the other truth is that the truth that we think we know is not necessarily the truth. Sometimes it's just based on, how we've been brought up, and it's not necessarily the truth. The world is not necessarily black and white. What I think might be right would be completely different in a different culture. So it's to challenge the way that we see the world as well, to make us, better global citizens. But not only that, it helps us to interact with different people from different cultures. When we negotiate business deals, we understand a little bit more about how people, see things, how people perceive the world. Another thing that I really think, it does is to get in touch with yourself. What I find is sometimes we just grow up in a society. You get just stuck in, you go to work, you finish university, you get to work. And sometimes you don't actually really know what you want, like what you're all about as a person, aside from society, aside from your family. And then the second part of the question, which I think, how can young professionals save money? Well, there's no shortcut to it. One of the things that you need to do is you need to save money. There are trips that you can do that you don't require much money. But if you want to explore beyond your borders, explore beyond your community, start simply by saving money. Put something aside every month and know that in your head it doesn't exist. It only exists when you're traveling, because I find that sometimes it's tempting when something happens, you take that money. So for me, I put it in a savings account that is not easy for me to access that money. So even if there's it is saved money. It is for what it is. It's not money to use on a daily basis. It is money. And sometimes it can be really hard to be disciplined, to be able to say that money doesn't exist. It exists for the purpose I'm saving it for. So I find that really helpful. And another thing that I find that that really helps me, I prefer to have experiences over materials. I have a phone, I have a smartphone, but for it to be functional. So I think it's also about just finding, looking at where you can cut your savings. If you want to travel, if you want to make it a priority, you have to cut the cost and think, okay, where I want to make this my priority, where can I, do some cost savings. So I find that really travel and being curious about what's outside of us is really valuable, and it's really, really helpful. First of all, it's valuable in a sense that it helps us to know the value of what we have, because sometimes we don't even realize the value of what we have on the continent of Africa. Exposure to different ideas, to different things, it helps you to make better, for us to make better decisions about the resources and about the value of things that we have. But not only that, we also need to think about, we could invest abroad, but if we're not going, how are we ever going to discover new things? We're only going to be discovered. We're only going to have people coming to discover what we have. So these are things that we want to, be able to, to travel to understand what we have. But not only that, to be able to really know about what's going on around it, because it helps us make better deals, but it also helps us to invest in other different things and make what we have better. Traveling, I've really become more self-confident, and I would also say I've learned to be able to trust myself and to trust other people. But the other thing is not just about self-confidence, about being able to trust people, being able to be open-minded and not make blanket statements about countries. I have met so much goodness. I've met so many different people from different cultures that have really it's been open to me as a solo traveler. I mean, I have had some countries that are racist, but in all fairness, even in those countries, I have met people who are, and I have also met people who, and I don't really focus on that really, I have met people who have gone over and above to just welcome me, and that's why I keep traveling, because every time I get blown away by that. And I would say the other thing as well is to be open-minded and to try new things. And that really has been enhanced by my travels. Being open-minded, being able to know that sometimes you go to cultures where they are almost opposite to how you've grown up, but being able to learn from those cultures, but also being able to question why you do things the way that you do, and whether you want to change some things or to grow and learn from different places, and to be able to be accepting of other cultures, to be able to say, yes, you do things differently, but I appreciate that. I understand that. You know, it was equally the same. Even, yeah. So for me, it's just being able to kind of being open to new ideas. And sometimes you have ideas that you've never thought about. So it's really helped me to be able to say, okay, I'm going to listen to your side. I'm going to try and understand how this culture works. And I love not necessarily black and white in terms of what you can do or not. Sometimes what I look into it is to see if I have a little bit of money to stay a day or two extra. So sometimes I do ask the employer if it's okay to extend my ticket by a day or two or three, depending on how much time. If there's no price difference, sometimes employers are willing to give you extra, sometimes they're not willing to give you extra, or sometimes you can say, I can pay the price difference. So it depends. The other thing that I do is it depends on where you go and on which country, but one thing that I find really helpful as well is to do free walking tours. Free walking tours basically is people who are passionate about their cities. They know their cities really well. So you kind of Google like free walking tours in a city and it tells you what times they are. So free walking tours, they don't charge you to go on the tour. What they do is they take tips from people. Another thing I would say is before you go, like do your research on Google, like research if like budget is really tight. Sometimes some cities offer free things to do that you can do if budget is really tight, or just budget to see what activities are a priority for you and then plan accordingly. Take the opportunities travel has to offer, and it's the open-mindedness as well, like even your work, just having that mind, you know, looking at things from different perspectives actually really helps even in our workplace. And sometimes being able to stop and say, okay, why am I doing things the way they do? And you know, so I feel that travel is really what you make of it. And and it's about sitting down and deciding, and sometimes you don't have, sometimes by just going, visiting a museum, learning about different, because the truth of the matter is sometimes you actually don't know what you're passionate about as well, or you don't fully know until you actually have gone out into the world. So I feel that sometimes it actually puts you in positions where you discover things that you never thought you enjoyed, you know. And I always say to myself, and I challenge myself with this, and I think it's really important for me, is to say always be willing to try new things. Don't stick to the same box, because then you won't learn anything, because then you're not challenging yourself, because then you're doing the things that you've always. The world is big enough to accommodate everybody's travel needs, you know, and everybody, there is room for everybody and opportunities for everybody to explore the world around us. And if that means utilizing the few resources that you have, the little resources that you have, do it. And for those that have more, they can use more to explore around the world around them. You know, I say money is not, you know, it gives you more choice, you know, a variety of choice, but actually we can also utilize the resources that we have to be able to explore the world around us. It's about us making use of what we have, and you know, making the most of the resources that we have. So I would say go out, explore the world around you, utilize the resources that you have.
Whew. Thank you so much to Faith Dziruni for her detailed, insightful tips. Thank you for this conversation, sharing with us how we can add value to our travel experiences and how to adapt an adventurous lifestyle that will benefit us as a people, as a continent, and as individuals. We say thank you again to all of our previous guests. That's Denai Bustamante from Cuba, Zuleika from Liberia, and now Faith Dziruni from Zimbabwe. We hope that this conversation, these past 3 conversations, extend and create impact, especially for our younger audience who this is particularly directed at, that you make the world your home. You discover the world. Don't be afraid to see more of where you are. This is your earth. This is your world. You go ahead and discover it as much as you can to develop your own mindset, to get exposure, and to impact your communities. So there you have it, people. We only highlight and you take flight. So keep these conversations alive until you see the change that you seek. Again, I am your host, Cyrene Williams, and this is Talkay Media. Bless up. We'll see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.